program should be. And among other things, this is what that paper said. This is called a New World Vision. This is the name of this article. It was kept secret for quite a long time. Later it was published by the Humanist magazine many years after, even after his death, I think. The general philosophy of UNESCO should, it seems, be a scientific world humanism, global in extent and evolutionary in background. So UNESCO has been pushing for that, and the whole United Nations has, for that matter, ever since.
Behind the facade of these families and these front men, they want to cull the population. Not only that, they want to manipulate the breeding of the population to remove what they perceive as the lower stock.
I'm going to have to go to somebody else, though.
Yes, but wait, last question, please. Last question, please. I mean, and they are advocating for this.
No. It's somebody else's turn. No.
But please, all right, stop.
Can I?
One more question. Make it really short.
Yes. Okay. I mean, these people, this elite, is advocating for a transhumanist world with machines. In fact, I believe the technocratic era of Brzezinski, he advocates for this kind of world, the same world that you are saying. I mean, a transhumanist world, and it has nothing to do with the monetary system, and it has nothing to do with money at all.
Where in Zbigniew Brzezinski's writing does he talk about a transhumanist world? I've read all of his books.
The technotronic era. Do you know that book?
Okay. It's the issue of these points. I think are ultimately kind of pointless to talk about. It's
Why?
not even worth speculating on the perceptions of what these individuals assume, even if that was what Brzezinski stated. The transhumanist idea, these are utterly detached from anything that anyone in this room or this world at this stage needs to worry about.
Society or government step in when it comes to changing the genes of a child before birth? That's the question high school students in Harrisonburg are discussing today. It's called transhumanism, or altering the human body through biotechnology. Award-winning journalist and author Ronald Bailey analyzed the ethics of the question. 8 high schools participated in the 16th annual event. Professor Myron Blosser says students will be confronted with this issue because of the new technology.
If you go out to 2029, our computers are not going to be these rectangular devices we put in our pocket. They're going to be inside our bodies and brains, and we're going to be a hybrid of biological and non-biological intelligence.
Once you know where a gene is, then that opens up the possibility for manipulating that gene. Cutting, pasting, changing, and so parents will eventually have the options of manipulating their DNA prior to having children.
In some ways, I'm trying to remember Brave New World enough, in some ways you're entering a place to where could you be manipulated by this? Could somebody say, oh, I'm turning you off, click, and turn you off?
Well, we already do a lot of intimate things with our computers. Technology has always been a double-edged sword.
Right.
Ever since we had fire and stone tools.
There will be, as he wished, a private funeral with no religious ceremony for Lord Bertrand Russell, one of the century's most talkative and talked about geniuses, who died yesterday, aged 97.
In another book put out by Russell, gradually by selective breeding, the congenital differences between rulers and ruled will increase until they become almost different species. A revolt of the plebs would become as unthinkable as an organized insurrection of sheep against the practice of eating mutton.
There's so many fantasies out there about this nefarious elite and all the shit.
Well, but Jack Fresco talks about the transhumanist idea when he says that machines have to merge with humans. I mean, that's the idea of the transhumanist agenda.
And that concept in and of itself has no negative or positive attributes. There's nothing positive or negative to it, and it has no relationship to anything any politician has to say.
Are you saying that Jack Fresco saying that is crazy, and that crazy idea of transhumanism is crazy?
Yeah, we need to move on.
No, not at all. What I'm saying is that, first of all, Jack Fresco doesn't talk about, quote, transhumanism. He talks about the reality that technology will flourish to an extent where humans might be modifying themselves to keep up with the pace. Same thing that Ray Kurzweil talks about.
There have been many attempts throughout the world, particularly in the old Soviet Union, to take the brain out of an animal, they like the dog, for example, and keep it alive with machinery. Now, you can do that with the heart, the kidney, the liver, the lung, all the other body organs, solid organs. But nobody had ever been able to do it with the brain. And part of the reason is we must remember the brain is very delicate when it comes to its blood supply. And so when we finally did it and found that this brain of a highly developed animal had brain waves, had biochemistry, was functioning just as it would. Now, we couldn't talk to it, we could send it electrical signals, we could show that it could actually hear and so forth, but we didn't know whether it was processing the information. If you can do it for the animal brain, you could do it for the human brain.
You've even written about the use of drugs in this light.
Well, now, this is a very interesting subject. I mean, in this book that you mentioned, this book of mine, Brave New World, I postulated a substance called Soma, which was a very versatile drug. It would make people feel happy in small doses. It would make them see visions in medium doses, and it would send them to sleep in large doses.
So consciousness can be transplanted. Obviously, personality, if you want to speak of the monkey having personality, can be transferred. And so you might ask, where did this bring us as far as the human spirit or soul goes? And I guess you could argue it can be transplanted.
Jacques, you've talked about emotion a lot in our conversations, and I think it's a tremendous point, because people have, again, a strong romantic need to think that emotion has a really powerful aspect in life as far as functionality, when I think you have mentioned to me that you feel emotion gets in the way more than anything else. Fortunately, people have been so conditioned now to think that a high-efficient society is somehow cold and unemotional, which they don't. And it is, in fact, somewhat, because we're eliminating all the problems of those emotional tendencies.
There was a data transmission for you from the controller's office.
Oh, about my trip, no doubt. To the Savage Reservation, you know.
Yes. I think they're canceling it on you.
Canceled? They couldn't. They wouldn't. Not when I've made plans to. Where is it?
In the file.
There must be some mistake. I had everything planned. How would something like that look on my computer file?
You'd better take a Soma.
Yes, that's just the thing.
Here you are, sir. I guess you won't be going on your vacation now.
Oh, we'll see about that.
These are technological, evolutionary things, just like somebody with Parkinson's disease has a chip in his head that can have software uploaded to it. He's not a fucking transhumanist. He's just a goddamn patient that has a fucking thing in his head that he needs it for. This will be the same thing that happens.
We have a Florida family who are really pioneers in a brave new world. They have volunteered to be the first ever to have microchip identification devices implanted into their body.
RFID is a technology that uses tiny computer chips the size of a grain of sand or even smaller, hooked up to miniature antennas to transmit information about items at a distance. The latest technology for identifying people at the point of sale, for identifying people when they make purchases, is actually the implantable chip that you can actually embed directly into human flesh. It's a tiny glass capsule about the size of a grain of rice. It contains an RFID computer chip with a coiled antenna, and it can transmit information also at a distance.
And what are the future applications of this? I mean, I presume it'll be able to do more things than just open your car door or your front door or log onto your computer.
Yeah, there's the common theme is access control, but some people are matching profiles to it. So you get in your front door, but then like a home automation system knows that it's you and sets lighting and music and that kind of preference.
In West Palm Beach, Florida, 100 elderly men and women diagnosed with Alzheimer's are now walking around with microchips embedded under their skin, and more are on the waiting list. Alzheimer's Community Care offers this service for free.
You've got a vulnerable person that is not always able to define what's wrong with them. And when you go into an emergency room, efficiency and effectiveness is the most important way of getting good treatment.
A New Jersey policeman says he's alive today thanks to a medical ID chip implanted in his arm.
Sometime in the next century, because computer chips are getting smaller and faster, and eventually the time will come when a child is implanted with a little chip back here and will learn to control the chip in the same way that you learn to control your bodily functions and your voice and your movements, so that not only can you, right now my mind is telling my body to talk, and it's supplying my mouth with the words that I'm giving to you, and the mind could also learn to say to the chip, go to a certain web page, download some information, and supply it to the inside of my eyeball.
You believe that you're going to be actually able to tell your mind through a chip to provide you with information that you can then speak. So on this program, this would be great for me. You put a little chip in there, and if I didn't know something, I could say to the chip, would I have to say it out loud or just think it?
Either way.
If I could just think it, give me an answer.
Our chip is a tiny miniaturized RFID, or radio frequency identification microchip. It's 11 millimeters by 1 millimeter. It's about the size of a grain of rice.
Well, we've got one sitting there by a penny to give us a little perspective of the size. Very
Correct.
Tiny. You implant it under the skin how?
It gets injected, just like getting a shot of penicillin or any medicine that you would get in a doctor's office. It goes in the upper right arm, which is the area that our physicians have chosen for ease of access as well as biocompatibility.
All right. Show me how this works. You've got a scanner here, and you have a chip implanted. Is it underneath your right arm?
It's in the right arm. You power up a scanner, and you simply scan the arm. And once you scan the arm, you'll see that the identification information.
And on the laptop here you have it hooked up to, it says some number, but that doesn't tell me anything about your health condition. Now, from that number, they access your health records.
Right, that's correct. If you go into further detail on the database about Scott Silverman, it'll have my driver's license information, it'll have medical information, it'll have financial information, and it'll have security information for ingress and egress into facilities.
We build sailboats for your use. You don't have to come up to Fresco and say, can I use a sailboat this Sunday? I say, there's 50 people before you. We build more than required, so you can take it out yourself. The only difference is your sailboat is monitored by satellite. In case there's fire at sea, we know where to go to get you. Not Big Brother watching you. I'm talking about safety for your own good.
All right, you hear the sound of the background, people saying, Big Brother, too much information, a little scary. How do you respond to that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I used to get that question a lot 2 years ago. Today, we've gotten it a lot less. In fact, the Attorney General of Mexico and some of his staff have received this chip for security purposes. And when the acceptance rate of the product goes up significantly like it has, some of the privacy concerns go down.
I mean, okay, so the computer chips, glasses are tools.
Sure, but all of these are external. The computer should be in you, and that's what frightens me. Scientists tell us that it is absolutely true and absolutely possible for a human being to have a chip embedded in their system and to have many, many things appear in their mind upon command.
So I'm going to stop the conversation as far as this goes.
Okay.
These are not relevant points.
How, but it is relevant to debate something. I mean, how it's not relevant to discuss something?
We educate children to be able to relate to one another, to speak, communicate with a referential language. That means today, I believe most of you have been brought up to believe that everyone should have a right to their own opinion. Isn't that true? Most of you? Okay. Let's say you live across the street from me, and I see 10 guys coming out of your apartment. I can have all kinds of opinions, right? You can be a language instructor, a ballet instructor, but if you give everybody the right to their own opinion, you're generating a lot of new problems.
The word Fabianism comes from the Fabian Society, which was formed in England in 1884. The Fabian Society. It was named after a Roman general by the name of Quintus Fabius. And he was